chapter 5 is all about parallel lines, and there's one thing you got to remember and everything else falls into place, and that is that parallel lines all have the same slope. Okay, so we can look at these lines over here. We can see right away that the red and blue ones are parallel. Remember, parallel means will never cross. Those red and blue lines are never going to cross each other, and we can see that that's because they have the same slope. So if we look at the red line over here, it says the slope is 2. Remember, I could think about that as a fraction if I wanted. 2 over 1, right? So I can pick 2 points on the red line. There we go. There we go. To get from one to the other, I go up 2 over 1, right? So I can say the rise is 2, the run is 1, and so the slope is 2 over 1. Same thing with the blue line. Just switch color real quick. The blue line, slope is 2. If I wanted to think about as rise or run, 2 over 1. Pick any 2 points on the line from here to here. And to go from one to the other, I have to go up 2 and over 1. And because they have the same slope, they have the same angle. And because you're going up at the same angle, they're never going to get nearer to each other, and you're never going to cross. And that's why they're parallel. Now let's look at the green line just as a contrast, right? The green line, the slope is 1/2. So it's not the same as the other two. So if I pick any 2 points on the green line, I can go from here, if I want, to here, right? And I'm going up 1 and over 2, and it's not the same angle, it's not the same slope, and so it's going to cross both the red and the blue line. Okay, so one takeaway, and it's all you need to know to solve everything in this lesson. It is parallel lines have the same slope. So how can we apply that? All right, so write the equation of a line that is parallel to y equals 3x minus 1. All right, well, I know that any parallel line, so remember the slope here, right? Slope here is 3. And if I want to write it as a fraction, I can write 3 over 1. And I know that any parallel line, and so parallel, you can do this little symbol. It looks like just 2 vertical lines that aren't going to cross. That means parallel. So any parallel lines have the same slope. So I know that my line has to be y equals 3x and then something, right? So now let's just figure out what that something is. And what we're going to do is we're going to graph the first line they gave us first. So 3x minus 1. My y-intercept is -1, so I'm going to start there. My slope is 3. I can think of that as 3 over 1. So I'm going to go up 3 over 1. So 1, 2, 3 over 1. Remember, it's positive, so I'm going up to the right. 1, 2, 3 over 1. Okay, so that's our original line. And so remember, any parallel line has to have the same slope. And the only thing that's going to change is the y-intercept is going to change. So for instance, I could start here. And then I could go up 1, 2, 3 over 1. And that would be parallel. Right? And that y-intercept would be 1. I could start at the origin if I wanted to. I could start right here and go up 3, 1, 2, 3 over 1. And that line would be parallel, right? None of those are ever going to cross. So the thing you can see here is that you can pick any y-intercept you want. You could pick 1, you could pick 0, -1 was the original one. It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is that it has the same slope. So you can pick any y-intercept you want. So I could do +1, I could do y equals 3x plus 1,000,000, right? I could do y equals 3x plus 0, the origin, which just would be y equals 3x, right? So any of these are going to be parallel to our original line because the only thing that matters is that the slopes are all 3. As long as the slopes are the same, they're parallel. All right, so same idea. But notice they didn't give us the equation in the y equals mx plus b form. So the only thing here that's different than the last one is we just want to put it in y equals mx plus b form before we can work with it. And so I don't want 2y, I just want 1y. So I'm just going to divide by 2 on both sides. And so I get y equals 3 over 2, can't reduce, so I'll just write it like that, 3 over 2, and that's our slope, x. And then 2 over 2 is 1, so it's just -1. So notice, 3 over 2 is my slope. So any line that is parallel to that is going to have a slope of 3 over 2, right? The only thing that's going to be different is the y-intercept. So instead of -1, I can pick absolutely anything. I could say +0, -10, minus 5 plus 2, and I'll just pick that, plus 2, right? So now let's check. Our first line, I'll do that back in red, was 3 over 2x minus 1. So we're starting at minus 1 again, right? That's my y-intercept. I'm going up 3 over 2. 1, 2, 3 over 2. Right there. 1, 2, 3 over 2. Okay? That's my first line. Try and do that pretty good. Okay? And then we'll go back to the green. And then, so the line that we just picked was 3 over 2x plus 2. So we're starting at 2, right? And then 1, 2, 3 over 2. And watch if I connect those. Sure enough, those are parallel. So again, the y-intercept can be whatever you want. It doesn't matter. But it has to have the same slope. That's it. 3 over 2, 3 over 2. So those lines will not intersect. They are parallel. Okay, so we're going to approach this like we were doing problems in the last lesson. And what that means is we need to remember that our line is going to go through this point 2, -3, and that point is made up of an x and a y value. And we can use that x and y value the same way we did in the last lesson. And I'll show you how in a second. Okay, but the first thing is our line, whatever it is going to be something y equals mx plus b, right? Every line that we're going to do, we can write like that. So our line is parallel to this line. And parallel lines have the same slope. So our slope has to be -2. So we can plug that in. So we know that y equals -2x plus b, right? We don't know what the y-intercept is, but we do know that the slope has to be -2. So we can just plug that in. Okay, so now back to what we were saying. We know they say this point, 2, -3, is on the line. So we know that that pair of x and y values has to work. So we can take 2 and plug it in for x, right? I can plug in 2 for x. And we can take the -3 and plug that in for y. And when we do that, the only thing left that's unknown will be the y-intercept, and so we can figure that out. So -3 equals -2 times 2 plus b, and -2 times 2 is -4, right, plus b. Okay, and so look, the only thing left is b. It's the only unknown. So if we add 4 to both sides, we get 1 equals b. And guess what? We just figured out b. We already know the slope. And so now all we have to do is plug in b and we get our equation. So y equals -2x plus 1. That is our equation. And we can graph it and see if it works, right? So y-intercept is 1, so I'm going to plug that right there. The slope is -2. If I want to write it as a fraction, I can, 2 over 1. So I'm going to go up to over 1, and I need to be going over to the left, right? Because it's a negative slope. So I'm going to go up to over 1, right? I could go in the other direction if I wanted to, and then go that way, right? And then guess what? Look, when we connect this, sure enough, our line is parallel to the original line. All right, last question. Which two lines are parallel, right? And you can see the green line, the purple line, and the blue line are all graphed. So right away, you already know, you can see in the picture that this blue line is parallel to the purple line and that the green line is not parallel to them. So the answer is going to be the blue and the purple lines. But let's see why. So remember, all we need to look at is slope. If the slope is the same, they're parallel. If they're parallel, the slope is the same. That's all we care about, right? So the slope of the green line is 1/2. The slope of the purple line is -1/2. So they're not parallel because even though they're both 1/2, one is positive, one is negative, and 1/2 does not equal -1/2, okay? So now you look at the next one, and that doesn't look parallel either, except, remember it has to be in y equals mx plus b form. And this is 2y, so I'm going to divide by 2 to get just y, and I'll get y equals, so that negative x is like a -1x, so that's like -1/2x. And then 1/2 is plus 1/2. But remember, I don't care about the y-intercept. All I care about is this slope, -1/2. And guess what? -1/2, these two are parallel because their slopes are the same, and we can see it on the graph